and welcome to the Climate Alarm Clock podcast, your Irish climate news podcast. I'm Darragh Wynne, and today myself and Ciara Daly are coming to you with a special episode from our home county of Galway. So rather than recording in our rooms on Zoom, we're actually outside on a farm, and we'll find out a little bit more about that later. But before we get into the episode, a reminder that we're an independently run podcast, and if you like to support what we do, you can do so by buying us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/The Climate Alarm. So for today's episode, we are on Green Earth Organics farm in Corrandulla, County Galway, and we're here with Kenneth Keavey. So Kenneth, thanks a million for having us out to the farm today and joining us on the podcast. So
thanks for inviting me.
So as I said there in the introduction, we're outside, we're on your farm here. So can you tell us a little bit about where we are and the work that you do here in Green Earth Organics?
Absolutely. Thanks a million, Darragh and Ciara, for inviting me on. A pleasure to be here. Yeah, so this is Green Earth Organics farm. It's about 28 acres in total. It was my granddad's farm, basically. So he was a mixed farmer here. So that's 2 generations ago. He had veg, he had chickens, he had all sorts of stuff, so he did everything. And then my dad came in. My dad couldn't take over the farm for a couple of different reasons, and it was rented out for a period of time. And then basically we're just trying to make a decision about what would happen to the future of the farm. So the farm is so it's 3 generations, and now it's an organic vegetable growing entity, basically.
Great. And can you tell us a bit more about sort of what kind of stuff you grow here and what you do here, and maybe a bit about the business, because there's a lot more than what happens in the farmyard to Green Earth Organics.
Yeah, sure. So basically, I suppose, look, we started out here growing vegetables on a 1/4 acre site just where the big packing shed is there now, and that was back in 2005. At the time, I was working in Medtronic in Galway, and we were just supplying carrots and stuff to friends and family and that, and basically from there then we're just going to, I just wanted to get into doing it in a more kind of commercial way to try and make a living from it, which at the time was, I guess there wasn't too many people in the west of Ireland growing vegetables. Vegetable farms were closing down, not opening up, so it was kind of to take a route in a new direction, So the farm itself now is mixed vegetable holding. We have about, I suppose, 15 acres of vegetables, all sorts of different types. We're sitting here in the yard, and behind me is there's 1,000 tomato plants. So
1,000 delicious tomato plants.
Yeah.
And there might be 999 now after the dent. Me and Darragh made in that.
Well, absolutely. Feel free to taste the produce as we go. So, we're right in the centre point of Irish production at the moment, and we've got tomatoes and kale and broccoli, and we grow everything, So there's a lot going on the farm. And then obviously, I guess I don't know if you want to talk about it now or later on, but the kind of the business model we have is unique, I suppose, in respect of how we get what we grow to the people that finally end up eating it at their kitchen table, So a lot goes on here. We have a lot of people employed, and it's a busy place. So.
One of the things that I love about Green Earth Organics is, well, obviously it's very convenient for me. You're only maybe about 2 miles up the road from where I am, so it's very easy for me to get my hands on delicious produce. But one of the things I love about what you do as a business is kind of the work that you do in terms of, well, specifically on social media is the easiest place to come across that. You're really kind of active in kind of educating people about what you do at the farm and why you do it like that. And something I suppose that would be interesting to kind of touch on is how, whether it was after getting into organic farming that you decided that you needed to start doing this, or vice versa. Did you say, I need to start doing this and I'm going to become an organic farmer? What did that journey kind of look like?
Right, okay, Ciara, thanks for the question. Yeah, so I guess, look, going back to right back when I was a small kid, you know, I was, you know, I wanted to be a member of Greenpeace, and I wanted to be with Friends of the Earth. And I remember when the first bottle bank started up in Galway outside what was Quinsworth at the time, and trying to convince my parents that the bottles should go to the bottle bank and not into the bin. And it was always something I thoroughly believed in, you know, the planet, the trees, the biodiversity. It was just something that was inside me that was there. And I worked on a farm for years as a kid growing up. My father wanted me to be, you know, wanted to know the value of hard work and to work summers. And I remember the end of my 5th summer, and I got 3 sheep, and I just didn't want sheep, and I didn't want to do farming at that stage. I was a teenager and all that, you know. So so that kind of was always there, deep down, I suppose, a belief that we have to take care of the planet and we have to do right by it, you know. And then I went off to university. I studied chemistry. I went off and worked in the pharmaceutical industry. I started working in the biotech industry. So I was dealing a lot with chemicals, and all the time the farm here at home was, as I was saying earlier, it was being rented, and my dad was talking about whether he would sell it or what. And I wasn't really happy doing what I was doing. So myself and my wife Jenny took the jump and said, look, right, we're just going to do it. We're going to go back to Ireland. We're going to take over the farm. We're going to do something right for the planet, and what can that be? And we figured out that growing vegetables without chemicals, local food production would be the right way to go. And that's what we decided. And then we made the transition and we did the jump, and here we are today, you know, 20 years later. So.
And how do you find the response, I suppose, to, you know, trying to communicate all of those efforts to an audience online?
Yeah, well, I guess if I go back to the start, maybe, it was very funny because we were like, back, you know, 20 years ago, there wasn't polytunnels. Now everybody has polytunnels, but back then there wasn't, you know. So we put up our first polytunnel, and there was, you know, great interest from, and not always positive interest either. We had the Gardaí visited us one time, came up to see what we were doing in our special polytunnel out the back. These strange blow-ins from the UK, but we weren't blow-ins because we're from here, but we were doing something new, and they wanted to have a little look around, so I'm not sure what was going through their mind. Well, I do know what was going through their mind, but nevertheless.
They heard about your cherry tomatoes.
Yeah, special plants that we had growing there. So, you know, anyway, so that was funny, and then there was the kind of the local contingent, the Roundup came into the debate, and growing without chemicals. It was a new thing back then, so yeah, I've lost my train of thought now. What was the original question, actually?
Just, I suppose, you've kind of covered it, I suppose.
Oh,
the
communicating,
communicating.
Yeah, well, I mean, I suppose that's kind of what's kind of grown with the business then, is the education and the piece, and trying to let people know that this is really important. And I'm not saying we're really important, but, you know, how we produce our food has a big impact on the health of our planet. And I feel quite passionate about that.
Good.
Yeah, I suppose what you said there about education, and, you know, I'd echo what Ciara says. The stuff you put up on socials are great, and it's something in the podcast. Ciara and Anna, our co-hosts, are always kind of slagging me because I'm always talking about food, and, you know, how food.
I slag you for talking about birds. I'm welcome to talk about food.
And how food insecure Ireland is and stuff. But I suppose on that education kind of idea, can you explain, like, how is what you're doing here different? You know, what makes organic farming and what makes what you're doing different to other farming in Ireland, and what are the benefits of that when it comes to climate, when it comes to biodiversity? Absolutely.
So I think the key thing for us is the connection with the person who's eating the food, you know, and trying to explain how the food is grown and the impact that that growing has on the environment, locally or globally or whatever, and to try and raise the level of awareness around food a little bit, you know. So when we were started out, and when the crash came in 2010 and we had to start supplying supermarkets, we lost that connection with people, you know, and it wasn't something I enjoyed. So, you know, we show people how we grow tomatoes and how to side shoot them and what's involved and the amount of work that goes into it. And, you know, when you don't use chemicals, the benefits that you see around us. We have beehives, we have bees, we have flowers, we have birds. You were talking about birds earlier. There's a myriad of biodiversity alive on this farm. And you only need to look left or right to our farm to see where there's monocultures of grass and no trees, and what impact that has on biodiversity. So big, large-scale conventional food production has a massive cost that isn't ever realised at the supermarket level. The cost now is becoming clear, I think, from the perspective of, you know, what's happening to our planet. And this is a cost that's going to be unquantifiable, you know, and these are the little things we can do in the little places to try and change that and make improvements and, you know, have a positive impact, and taking those choices does make a difference, you know. And I think that's one of the things we can all suffer from, is getting carried away by, well, it doesn't matter anyway, you know, whatever I do, what the hell is it, how much of a difference is it going to make, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I think it's one thing for me, you know, when things get overwhelming or whatever, and how big things are, food is something, you know, you eat every day, and if you have that connection to your food and to the people that are growing it, it's a really empowering thing as a consumer. I find that, and well, I don't know if this, I would have ordered boxes from you, but now I'm in the office in the day that that you deliver up to Dublin, so I can't do that. But I remember like that feeling of getting the delivery, you know, from you, and, you know, having the different food every week, and having the challenge of, you know, having to do something with the different ingredients you wouldn't normally have and that kind of thing. But it's such a powerful thing, and just having that connection with food that a lot of people don't have anymore.
Exactly, and it's happened kind of nearly without us even realising it's happened, because you just go back a generation and you had that connection with food, and now the way food is being sold and packaged and delivered, you know, it's removed us from the understanding of what the impact the production of the food has on the people, on the ground, on the land, on biodiversity, on the planet. Everything is taken away, and I've often said it, you know, you go to the supermarket, it's very convenient, it's very easy, it's wrapped in plastic, it's there, it's shiny, it looks great, but you have no idea really the story behind that pepper or the carrot or whatever it is, and what you know, either benefit or damage it's done in its journey to your supermarket and then onto your plate, you know. So
something you kind of mentioned a little bit earlier was just kind of about what makes your business unique, and we've kind of got a little insight into, you know, your relationship with the supermarkets. Could you kind of give us a little bit more? You're not selling into, like, your business model is unique in that you sell direct to the consumer. So could you just give us a little bit of insight into why you've made that decision? You know, it was something you did previously. And
absolutely.
And just how it works as well, maybe.
Absolutely. So look, I guess back in the day when we were supplying a super value chain, and it was good for us at the beginning, and I think this is what can happen, and I know for a fact this is what can happen in the beginning. Things can be, well, you know, you're the supplier, and, you know, you think you're being treated with respect and all the rest. So we had a chain of stores and we were delivering to them, and that was great. And sales would go up and down. And then one day a manager in one of the stores changed, or their kind of approach to their margins or whatever it was changed. And that Monday we didn't get an order, and that was our biggest customer, and we didn't have an order. And I spoke with the manager, and the manager said, listen, yeah, of course, no problem. We can give you an order, but you need to drop your price. You need to be responsible for the waste on our shelves. You need to manage our shelves, and you need to take the stuff away. And you need to deliver to us, and just be responsible for the whole thing, for or less.
That's
which
really,
didn't make it sustainable.
One day they just turn around and change those
on
terms.
a Monday, and I guess I'd be quite, you know, emotional in that respect, and my reaction wasn't considered, or, you know, like, well, we have to work with this. It was just like, that was that. We'll find another way, you know, and we ditched them in a fit of rage, I suppose, which probably wasn't the best business decision ever. It could have been more measured, but, you know, it was the right decision at the time. And I know a lot of conventional farmers, we have, you know, you see what's been happening this year with farmers closing their doors and shutting down, and they're not talking about asking for huge amount increase in price for the primary produce they're producing. You might be talking about 5 cents on a head of celery. I mean, why can't that be given if that's going to save the local production of food, organic or otherwise, you know? And it won't be.
Something I've seen you talking about a bit on Green Earth Organic social media pages is about loss leaders, and how vegetables are often the loss leader. Could you just give a little bit more insight into what that is? And
Yeah, absolutely,
works?
Ciara. Yeah, so loss leading is where a supermarket uses a product or produce to entice people into the shop, and it's sold way below, the cost value of production. So if you go back a few years, there was a Christmas there where Brussels sprouts and carrots were sold at, I think, 5 cents or 10 cents
Wow.
per pack. I don't know if you remember that, but it wasn't that long ago, maybe 5 or 6 years
Yeah.
ago. There was big uproar from both the community and the farmers, because that was basically, number one, degrading the value of the
Yeah,
produce that somebody's
absolutely.
worked really hard for.
It's really disrespectful.
And secondly, even though the supermarkets take a percentage of the hit there, they expect the farmer to contribute to that. So how can you produce food for how can you produce a bag of carrots for 5 cents? That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's absolutely crazy. We're just having one of the tractors coming in to the yard there now. So.
Yeah, and it kind of changes. What angers me about that is it changes the consumer's perception. It changes the value that they place on that product.
Well,
and
yeah.
we kind of already have a huge problem with that. We don't need any kind of more fuel thrown on that fire.
Well, absolutely. And I think there's, I can't remember the exact piece of legislation, but there is legislation that prevents the selling of certain items below the value or the cost of production, but it doesn't apply to fresh produce, to fish, to meat, or to vegetables,
Yeah.
which is crazy, and that's the one thing that could change, that would level the playing field and make it fair, and would encourage, a bit of stability in the whole industry, and maybe encourage people that are thinking of getting out of it to stay in it.
Yeah.
And supermarkets have, they have all the power, they have all the retail space, they can dictate exactly what the price will be. Farmer has no choice in the matter. And what you said there about devaluation in people's minds, well, that's a very important one, because it devalues, probably the best food we can eat, and it's saying it's not worth crap.
Yeah.
It's just not worth anything.
That's actually something I was saying before we went on. I interviewed you, I think it's over 4 years ago now at this stage, for a different project, and something that you said that really stuck with me was that, we eat food every day. It's going into our bodies. It's so important, and we need to value it, and we need to show that value by being willing to pay more for good produce, that is good for people and good for the planet. And it's something that, obviously not everyone can do it. Some people are in, especially at the moment, really difficult situations with cost of living crisis, that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
But I think it's a really powerful thing that if you are in a position where you can pay a little bit more for your food and value it from a financial point of view and from a personal point of view, it's such a big thing.
Yeah, it makes such a difference, and you hit the nail on the head earlier. You're saying the cost and the value then to the planet and the value to your health. We had Sean Owens, who's a doctor, an MD, or is that what we say here in Ireland? He's a GP, and he's a member of Doctors for the Environment, and they brought out a report there in May about how food affects our health. And I loved what he said about, it's an investment in your health pension for the future. It's very hard, though, to realise what's going to happen in 20 years as a result of your choices now, but it really does make a difference,
Yeah.
And if we can see that, then it helps justify paying a little bit extra for your food. And you're right, of course, there are a lot of people who are finding things very difficult, and how can you say, well, we want you to pay more for your food then as a result? But on the other hand, what do we put value on as well?
Yeah, that's it. So can you talk then a bit about that model of delivering direct to the customer and how that works, and because it's not just food from the farm that you deliver as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So look, we discovered quite quickly that just because we grow something doesn't mean people want it. And we grow stuff because we like it and it's easy to grow, but nobody's going to eat it, so that's not going to work out too well for you. And you still have a logistical challenge of getting something from Corrandulla and Galway to, say, Swords in Dublin. And how do you manage that, So how do you manage it and still stay in business as well? Because it's a costly affair, producing food, packing food, and then doing the delivery, the whole thing from start to finish. And that caused two different changes to the business. One was we figured out quite quickly that we can't grow everything on the farm, and we needed help from other growers to support this kind of network that we're trying to develop. So over the last 2 years, that's changed dramatically now, where we have other growers that are growing crops for us specifically at an agreed price, which is a fair price, and we agree to take a certain amount from them at a price we agree, and we don't change that. So there's a network of growers that we get produce from, all organically certified, and we pack that and then we deliver it. We also have grocery products, and we've had to bring in the grocery products to try and make the delivery sustainable, and also to give customers an option to buy sustainable, healthy groceries. And most of the stuff we stock is plastic free, and that's one of the other kind of guiding principles of the business. So
Yeah, so you deliver nationwide, people anywhere around the country.
yeah, and obviously people can go onto our website and order whatever they want. Back in the early days, it was just a fixed box, but we also found out that people want a bit of flexibility. So now you can go and choose to buy some of our lovely cherry tomatoes that will be picked fresh here, packed into paper bags and delivered to your home, wherever that is in the country, or some of our broccoli or kale, or some of Enda Hoban scallions, or Battlemount Farms organic new potatoes, or whatever it is, and we'll pack it up, deliver it to you in sustainable packaging wherever you are, whatever part of the country.
Yeah. And I suppose kind of, as I was saying, I can't, with the way things are at the work at the moment, I haven't been able to order for a while, but what I really like is, you know, you were talking earlier about how the supermarkets, you don't know where the food has come from and that kind of thing. Whereas I feel when I'm getting it from here, you curate it almost.
Yeah.
You know, so it's kind of like, well, you know,
Yeah.
you've done your due diligence, so, you know, even the tinned chickpeas or whatever, you know, they're as good as it gets. So that's what I feel. It kind of takes any of that stress or worry out of it.
absolutely.
It's like, well, you know, I know what your business is about. I know you've done the research, so actually I don't have to worry. You know, I don't look any further, and there's real peace of mind in that.
Well, thank you for that, Darragh. And it is something like when we're making a decision about how we grow something, if we're going to grow it sustainably, and then all the other steps down the line have to be as sustainable as we can. Actually, we just had a team meeting in there, and one of the questions last week was about the compostable bags that we pack our kale in.
Yeah.
And so we had to go and do a little bit of research, and it's PLA, polylactic acid, and it was good. The member of the team brought it up, and it's not plastic, it's not petrochemically derived, but at the same time, it takes longer to degrade. But we discuss things like that at a level, and the people who are working there are thinking about this stuff, which is great.
Yeah, like it's obvious that, you know, not every business can do every single absolute element of their business like A1. That's just not ever going to be realistic. But that idea that you guys are at least trying and are always reviewing and always figuring it out, it's like exactly what you say. Like when I come here, I don't have to read labels, I don't have to pick everything up, I can just get what I need and go out. And like that's actually a real unique kind of thing to be able to do when you're trying to do things sustainably, because you're constantly being like, can I do this? And then you're looking at the price, so at least you can just be like, come up to Green Earth Organics, be like, okay, I just do these things and go about the rest of my day.
Yeah, absolutely.
And can you just talk then, you mentioned all the kind of staff you have, because that's one thing that I find really I feel is missing from the conversation around agriculture in Ireland, is that, you know, you said this is a 28-acre farm, and with, you know, say the farm that we have at home would be around the same size or a bit bigger, and a lot of family farms like that are that size, it's just one person running them, you know, or it's just, you know, maybe two people that, you know, the farmer and his wife or whatever.
Yeah, right.
Whereas on this farm you're employing loads of people. You know, people talk about rural decline in Ireland and stuff, whereas actually this isn't just good for kind of the planet either. You have a model where on a farm, if it was say beef, might only be employing one person. How many people are you employing? And
yeah, so it's, I suppose there's the farm aspect, which is depending on the time of the year, 4 or 5, 6 people. It's very labour intensive, picking vegetables. We have a lot of machines, as you can see around me here, and tractors and things for weeding and all sorts of bits and bobs. But nevertheless, most of the produce is harvested by hand, and that takes people. You know, people are missing from the fields
Yeah.
of Ireland today. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
But in total, in the whole business, there's 35 people. You know, that doesn't just involve the farm, of course. It involves the quality control and the packing and the administration and the delivery and the marketing and this and that and all the other bits that we try to kind of keep all the balls in the air while we're juggling them all, you know. So it's a busy little place, you know, and I guess you're right. Rural decline is an issue, and trying to get people back to see other opportunities on the land. And that's one thing I guess we've seen. We've seen a lot of people come through here and then learn a little bit and then go off and start their own small vegetable farm. There's been a number of people who've done that. And I think there's been a growth in you know, small organic producers around the country, led by young people, which is fantastic, because you need the energy. Let's face it, oh my God, it was 20 years ago, I was a good bit younger then. You need the energy to get through that early days, you know, you really do. So, yeah, so that's it.
There have been a lot of stories lately about kind of crop yields and how, you know, the weather has really impacted that. And in Ireland, we just had the hottest June ever, followed by the wettest ever July. So how has that affected things for you here at Green Earth Organics?
So I think, Ciara, the thing that we've seen since 2018, which is probably one of the years that will stand out in most people's memory, with the beast from the east, Hurricane Ophelia just before it, and then a mad drought.
Yeah.
3 climate-related disasters in 1 year. Just recently, May and June were very, very dry, unseasonably hot.
Yeah.
We've had to invest in a water tanker to water crops, and people used to laugh at that in the west of Ireland, in Galway. Why you were irrigating in Galway? Are you mad in the head? But now it's a reality. It's the change in the seasons, the change in the climate. Crops are stunted for 2 months without water, which it was 6 or 7 weeks. I think we had no rain, which is highly unusual, but becoming a lot more usual. So that affects crop yield in that the plants don't grow without water, right? And then July, you have a cold, wet July, and that further inhibits growth. It waterlogs the soil, it increases disease pressure on plants. It has a big impact on yields, you know, so it does absolutely affect us.
Yeah. That must be a big stress on, like, obviously, from a business standpoint, that's an obvious stress. But in terms of, you know, when you've got all of these people that you're employing, you know, that's an additional, you know, that connection between the food and people who are growing it. It's really apparent when you think of it through that lens as well.
Well, I think you know, that's you asked earlier about the communication on social media, and we try to communicate the reality of what's happening and the challenges that are involved. And I think, like, we've a lot of loyal customers, a lot of people are very supportive of what we do, and we're very grateful and thankful for that. And just to show, like, this is the reality here. Look, this stuff is waterlogged, it's not going to grow, it's going to die. But you've made all the investment, you have all the overheads, and what do you do with that, you know? And we're really lucky. We're in the west of Ireland. We have a nice climate, relatively speaking, compared to what's happening in other parts of the world, you know, where there's huge production of commodity crops.
Yeah. In relation to that, kind of those crops that are being grown outside of Ireland, or whatever, like food production outside of Ireland as a whole, how would that impact what you're doing here at Green Earth Organics, if at all?
Yeah, so it impacts us quite a lot, I suppose, because our remit is grow it ourselves if we can, and we've discovered we can't grow everything, so then we get other Irish growers to grow stuff that we don't grow. And you see that we pay more for the Irish produce. It costs more to grow Irish produce. Labour costs are higher in Ireland. You know, it just costs more. So then you have the situation where a lot of cheap food has been imported, and you're trying to compete with that, and you just can't. You just can't do it. It goes back to your question about loss leading earlier. If we devalue the fresh food and we're buying imported cheap food, and then we're seeing Irish food that is that bit more expensive, is a consumer prepared to pay the price to support the Irish farm? But we think people are. I think it's one of those things that seems to be a winning argument, that people want to support Irish, you know, where it isn't prohibitively more expensive.
And just on what you were saying there about the weather and the kind of June and July, is it, I don't know where I saw this, but is it kind of helpful for you in dealing with adverse weather that you grow such a mixture of things? Is it kind of that there's, you know, there might be a couple of crops you have to write off, but there'll always be something that will make it through. Is kind of is that smaller scale, more diverse growing, is that kind of more climate resilient than the kind of monoculture approach that we see in most of the country?
What a great point, absolutely. I mean,
10 points for Darragh.
yeah. It's such an important point though, because there's a couple of different things in there. Firstly, I suppose growing stuff sustainably means your soil is in better condition. If you've got a lot of water, it can hold the water, it doesn't flood, it doesn't get waterlogged as much. It's able to tolerate the stresses that we're seeing now, because the soil, and with that, healthy soil leads to healthy plants. So that's the first thing that, let's wait for the tractor maybe to go by. So, and then, small production, lots of variety. Of course, variety is the spice of life, as they say, So if you've got kale over here and leeks over there, they may need different conditions and one will thrive and one may not. So you have a certain element of resilience in there. And when you grow to large monocultures, that's absolutely what's missing. And not only that, but what you're planting into isn't as resilient, so you have a double negative. So going to more diverse, as our grandparents did, and I'm not saying go back to the dark ages, but it's definitely a way that we can tackle and still grow food whilst the climate is in the flux it's currently in,
Yeah.
You kind of spoke about, well, we've covered kind of, the costs and the labour that's associated with organic farming. And we've talked a little bit about, that kind of the devaluing almost of vegetables for some reason here in Ireland. Is there any kind of government or industry supports that you would see as being necessary to kind of, how do we incentivize more growers to become organic, and how to grow that element of the food industry here in Ireland, so that we can kind of increase the amount of sustainably produced food that we have, but also so that we can make it more affordable to the consumer, or at least make it accessible, because, reality is organic veg at the moment is not accessible to everyone. Organic anything. And even sometimes not organic is not.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Kind of, is there any? It's a big question, but I'm sure you've got the answer.
Oh, I don't know if I know. Well, then I may not be sitting here in the old farmyard, but look, I mean, I think the bottom line comes down to you can talk all about supports and grants and everything else, and if you look at the way supports are divvied up, it's the size of the land, the landowner. You're going to get a bigger grant, even if you're not producing stuff in some cases. The bottom line is you go to somewhere like France and you see the price of a head of lettuce, and it's a reasonable price for the lettuce, and that would suggest that the farmer is getting a more reasonable price for the cost of production. And ultimately, a fair price for the produce you're producing is it's the only way. Why does what other industries are expected to be supported by grant aid to be sustainable? It's ridiculous. It's our food security in a time when we need to be so aware of this. And we're going, the farmers get the grants, and actually, just to put it in context, we get very little in the way of grants here. I think we get maybe 2,000 euros in a year for the farm we have here, which in the context of the impact it has on our business is nothing.
Something I've always found really strange about the organics, about businesses that try to operate as an organic business, is the fact that you have to pay for a certification, don't you?
You do. So our certification, and certification protects the consumer, so it's important, but there's a cost. Our cost is approximately 1,600 euros in a year, and then there's all the paperwork you need to amass, So
you would imagine that you would need to be paying to do business badly, really.
Yeah. Well, this. I mean,
it's almost penalising the people who are trying to do it right.
Well, I guess there is definitely a cost to being certified, but at the same time, it kind of keeps things right as well in a way, And if you're not certified, you get bigger players involved. How do you know that they're actually following the rules? And we're inspected twice a year. We would be anyway. The certification is an afterthought in our head. We do things because we want to do them, but we have to be certified, and we will be certified. So but you're right. You have a good point there too. Yeah.
Thanks. Now, Darragh.
Are there any things then? I know you said, like, you know, I think it's great that you're hammering home that point about, you know, we just need to value food, but are there sort of big picture things that you would love to see, you know, from a policy perspective or from a, you know, from a grant perspective or whatever that could change food, that could incentivize not just new organic growers, you know, that could incentivize, say, people to change over from beef or dairy to be growing some food? Do you think there?
Well, I guess if you're looking at it from the perspective of trying to make it more affordable, then, and we have to stay with the idea of grant aid, then there has to be more grants based around production. So if you produce carrots and you're going to be producing organic carrots, then you're going to get a supplement which will then allow you to sell the carrots for a lesser cost, which makes it more affordable to the consumer, you know. I don't think any other business would, you know, go down that road of having to rely on that, you know, but I get what you're saying completely. Now, there are some good grants out there at the moment. The TAMS grant, which is available to all farmers, the government has just increased the availability to cover solar panels and solar energy production to 60% of the cost of putting solar panels on your farm sheds. How many farm sheds are in Ireland, and how could that help us in our energy heading towards carbon neutrality, you know? So why isn't every farmer should have solar panels on their farm sheds at 60% grants? So many farm sheds around. Why not, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's it now,
I think the other thing, you know, or that I find interesting about the kind of grants and the way it works is that we, on one hand, we're having this cost of living crisis where people can't afford food, but then the fact that most of the food that's grown here, the beef and dairy, is for export. So you're not even seeing the grants bringing down the price of food that's locally produced, because that food is mostly imported, and it's this totally.
How much food, Darragh? You love this stat.
It's around 80%.
I think it's 80%.
Yeah, but it's true, like export-driven agriculture is the model we have in this country, you know, and indigenous production for indigenous supply it's kind of an afterthought, you know, so it is. And that makes it difficult to compete in that arena, because all the supports and all the government ministers and everybody, and like farmers have a huge voice, but it's all of a certain type, you know, it's all, and we're in a little organic vegetable production farm. We're a tiny minority in this country of farmers, you know, so.
Yeah, and can I ask about that then? Because, you know, so much of the discourse when it comes to climate change and farming, it's the kind of environmental movement and farmers and primarily the beef and dairy industry really at loggerheads. You're kind of in the middle, or you're in both camps.
Don't know where I am some days. Oh my God.
We're in Corrandulla, Kenneth. Ratch business.
But I suppose you're, you know,
longer at it anyway than me and Tara.
Well, I mean, how
have you navigated it?
And it's something that, you know, that's a good way of putting it. How do you navigate that, or how do you feel about all that, or do you
I don't know if I can say how I feel about all of that.
It's a safe space.
Fair enough.
Well, I mean, you know. So we've been, as you say, we've been at this a good few years now, and there's been a lot of ups and downs over the years, you know, but just determined to stay the course. And I guess, again, it goes back to people who value what we do, supporting us along the way. So that's great. And there are those people out there we're eternally grateful for. But the vast majority of the land area of Ireland is in the production of grass. Let's be clear, you know, I mean, look around, that's what we do here. We grow grass, and then we use the grass to feed animals, produce beef and produce dairy, and that's it. And is that compatible with a planet that's warming? And in our little country here, do we have power to change that? And I think we do. I think if farmers can see there's an alternative way, then change can happen. Or maybe we need to just do less of it, you know, or do it in a slightly different way, or grow more trees to balance it out as well on all these farms, you know, which can be done. That's a very cost-effective, straightforward way to help with at least the emissions we're continuing to create.
Yeah, and also, I mean, the big thing for me is from an adaptation point of view. You know, when we're so reliant on imports, when you're seeing the Mediterranean and so many places burning, it just makes sense to grow our own food.
Yeah, well, what happens if
Yeah.
we cannot have the food imported?
Yeah.
What happens, like there was it a couple of years ago when the fodder crisis and we were importing hay? I mean, because we needed to feed the cattle to produce the food that was going to be exported to China.
Yeah,
I mean, it doesn't make much sense really if you think about it.
Yeah, and it's one thing that frustrates me, that's missing from the dialogue so much is, let's forget about the emissions.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's not even care about them. What's coming down the tracks, with extreme weather and food production around the world.
But when it's when the pain hits home, that's when real change can occur. The question is, will it be too late when the pain hits?
Yeah.
And with food production, it's not an industry you can just turn on. Like I always say, the sugar beet industry was an amazing model for local food production that had a whole skill set and an energy behind it, and it was disbanded overnight. And all of that skill and artistry was lost in the space of a couple of years.
And all the mills as well. There's a mill not too far from where we are, and
yeah, absolutely. You go to other countries and they're starting to really value the local food production more. We're a little bit behind, but I think we're starting to catch up. And you have to appreciate the farmers' challenge as well. Like, what are the options and what are the supports and what's being told to them as well by the government agencies, and which way are they being pushed? Because there's a government agenda too, and it's going towards, intensification of dairy and beef. That's the model that the government or the systems want farmers to go in. So if you're a farmer, what do you do? How can you combat that?
I spend probably way too much time thinking about that, but I think because food is something I'm so passionate about, and I think about the last 2 years of doing this podcast, I've learned a lot. Like I say to them, they've watched me in real time realise the severity of what this is.
Yeah.
But then I can't help, I know what would be great is if we reduced, dairy farming and beef farming here in Ireland. Wouldn't that be great? But realistically, that's, we can't just turn it off overnight. And then I have the thing of, I've grown up here where your farm is. This is the village I've grown up in. There's family farms. There's there's farmers now who I knew when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I can see there's one specific dairy farm which is just it's gone insanely big.
Yeah.
And if I did not know those people, I would be well able to badmouth what they're doing. But I don't. But I do know these people, and I do understand, this is the advice they've been given to do. And I can only imagine, even if we gave them all of the subsidies and everything in the world tomorrow to change, like the emotional input to having built that, I can, that gives me such a sympathy, and I find that really difficult to navigate in terms of calling out the dairy and the beef industry, because not the industries but the people within it. I'm very reluctant to go too hard on them, because ultimately it's not their fault, but I understand that responsibility needs to be taken. And there's this whole big, I want you to give me some therapy on this. How have you
I was at a meeting many years ago. It was a rural development meeting, and there was Department of Agriculture people there and Teagasc people there. And there was a guy, and he was clearly about to retire or whatever from either, I can't remember, was it Teagasc or the department. And they were all talking about intensification and pushing forward and all the rest. And this guy got up and he stood up and he said, well, actually, what was so bad about the traditional Irish farm? Why are we, heading and following the American model in production? You think there was a lot of people weren't making, a great deal of money, but you'll never make a great deal of money in farming. That's also the bottom line.
Yeah.
And why was it such a bad thing? And why do we need to intensify? And wasn't it working? And didn't it bring a whole pile of community and happiness to so many people? And are we, and I just thought he made a great point. And I'd imagine he must have been close to retirement, because nobody else in that room echoed that point. So, but it was good. It was valid. I thought it was a good one.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, and I think the fact that your farm kind of skipped a generation as well. I think that's really interesting as well, because it went from being a mixed farm and then carried on to being kind of a mixed farm or a growing farm. Because say my dad now is he knows so much, you know. Like he grew up
Absolutely.
in a mixed farm,
Yeah.
and he knows how to grow loads of things, and they would have
Yeah.
had chickens and cows and pigs and
Absolutely.
everything. Whereas farmers, say 20 years younger than them, they don't have
It's
that
a
knowledge,
single
that
thing,
skills,
yeah.
that all disappeared in a generation,
Yeah.
and that's another huge
Loss.
loss and
Absolutely.
another huge obstacle in terms of if you do want to return to that model. But I think what you were saying as well there, Ciara, about, you know, say, like knowing dairy farmers and understanding what they're doing, like until the messaging on how bad the climate stuff is, you know, is coming crystal clear from the government, then nobody is.
I don't even
nobody is
necessarily
going to
think it's
change.
around that. I think it's more from them, a business perspective. Like, I look at what's happening and I think that is just a bad business decision. Like, understanding, looking at the market and how it's going to go, and the huge amount of I'm going into it now, but the huge amount of investment that goes into it, like, it actually just doesn't even make business sense to operate a business like that.
But that's what
and then you look at the other side, at the beef farmers, and like, they're not, like, any beef farmer around this village has another job to actually, so that they can make an income. So putting all that money in for someone to not even make an income out of it is a complete waste. Like, what are we doing? And it just, really, really irks me.
Yeah, it hits home. But you know, you mentioned there the off-farm income and all that. But the people who do that, you know, they want to walk the fields, they want to be out in nature as well. And then you have on the other side going, no, let's get bigger, let's get intense, let's go bang, bang, bang. And whenever you do that, you know, nature doesn't fit into the box where intensification works long term. It just doesn't. And that's where we've gone with so many other crops. And with animals, it's just heart-wrenching to see what's happening in that respect, you know.
And it just, it really saddens me because it's a huge pressure on people that doesn't need to be there, and it's going to take absolute years to undo it. Like, it really is, and it's really visible when you live in the countryside. It's very easy to look around and see the toll it's taken on people, whether they know it or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, indeed.
That feels good.
So I suppose maybe to wrap up in terms of really bringing it back. There's been some big issues we've talked about for individuals, you know, in terms of making good food choices or making good decisions around that. What kind of advice can you give to people if they want to, you know, in their own small little way, make a difference?
Well, I think that the biggest thing anybody can do is renew the connection with the land that we're walking around on, because once you start to appreciate that, your perspective on how things are changes, you know. So, and growing food is a great medium to do that. To grow your first carrot or to grow a tomato plant and harvest it, you realise this is nature at work. It's a miracle and it's amazing. And once that mindset starts to filter through, all sorts of other changes happen. So I think getting out and planting a few beans, maybe not Jack and the Beanstalk style stuff, but just a few beans and growing your own
Nothing
food.
to have the guards around now.
Yeah. You can plant, well, yeah, do that too, but you know, and I think that's key. I mean, eat more vegetables. Climate footprint of, you know, plants is a lot less than of animals. So by default, you're shrinking your your emissions that you're responsible for. Eat more locally grown vegetables if you can, because they have a smaller carbon footprint. And if you can, eat organic, because that improves biodiversity amazingly. So, you know, and that supports a healthier ecosystem, which in turn helps trap carbon and helps deal with the climate crisis that we're in, you know. So this is, as you said at the beginning, Darragh, that people have control over their food to a large extent. And if you get past the glitzy, shiny wrappers in the supermarket, you can you can make choices that really make a difference, like really do. They really do. You know, and I believe that.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's great, you know, if you do buy that, you know, organic, or you know the local place you're buying from, it's not just the climate stuff, it's the biodiversity. It's no, that farm that I've bought from, that has thriving, healthy soil, and that has space for nature, and also is probably employing people locally as well, you know, and it's a lovely feeling.
And biodiversity, you can relate to it on a local level.
Exactly.
You can relate to the bees and the butterflies and the birds and all of these things that you see that make up the area that we share. You know, we share the planet with these creatures. You know, so definitely.
It's a great piece of advice.
Great.
Okay, I have one question before we let you go, Kenneth. I would be interested to know as to whether you use any of the terms like climate activist or climate advocate to describe yourself, and even if not, what kind of, why you do a lot of great work on the Green Earth Organics social media, to educate people about the impact that supporting an organic farm can make. But what kind of joy, what spurs you on to do that? Is there any joy that you have found in this journey of setting up this business? Is the bigger question.
So I don't have a label or anything. I suppose I'm a climate advocate, if you wanted to call it something. An activist, I'd like to be more of an activist.
Yeah.
I think maybe if I can step back from the business a bit at some stage, that will be something I definitely will be. The joy I take from it, I love nature. I love planting trees. I love seeing it. I love seeing the fact we can grow crops and have nature at the same time.
Yeah.
I take a lot of joy from that. Plus the fact that there's people out there that are, I suppose, by the fact that they're supporting us, are maybe learning something or picking something up or changing their mindset as well. And that's really important for me and for the business as a whole too. So I think, little by little we can make the changes. We all need to do it together. So more people do it, the better. And that's what I think.
Definitely. I hope the sounds in the backdrop are picking up, because it's such a nice...
Yeah, we had swallows flying overhead and a few, I don't know if they're finches or what, and is that a chaffinch there tweeting away behind us? It's
I think we need to record all our climate alarm clocks.
Well,
podcasts from
just
the
what
Green
we
Earth
should have
Organics.
done actually, lads, is that thing there, that machine behind us, it's an actual flatbed weeder, and you get to lie down on it and weed, so we could have actually all lie down for this.
Episode 2.
Yeah.
We better wrap it up.
So that is it for this special episode from Green Earth Organics. Kenneth, thanks a million for the chat.
Thanks a million, you.
So if people do want to
so
check yourselves out, where do they go?
Please go to our website, greenearthorganics.ie, and you can order whatever. You see all our great Irish selection there, all the plastic-free stuff, and we deliver everywhere in the country.
Brilliant.
Please support us. We do appreciate it, and it does make a difference. And we'll be harvesting your tomatoes very soon.
Which
We had one or two there before we started recording, and they're absolutely delicious.
So thank you, and thanks to you both for the opportunity to
We'll
talk
put a
about
link
something.
to the website in the show notes anyway for anyone that needs to find it. But this has been absolutely lovely.
Yeah, and to the Instagram page, where there is just brilliant information and updates on food production on a very local level, but also the big picture stuff, which is great. So that's it for this episode. If you want to follow the Climate Alarm Clock, you can follow us on Twitter at the Climate Alarm, and on Instagram and Facebook at Climate Alarm Clock. And if you do want to support the work that we do, you can do that on buymeacoffee.com/the Climate Alarm. We'll be back with our 5th season in September or October, so keep an eye out on our socials for details
5th,
of that.
6th season, September, November. See you when we see you.
Thanks a million, guys.
Great.
Thanks, Kenneth.
Thanks very much.
Thank you so much.